Cassie Ventura officially done for the day, officially done with her testimony. She is expected to give birth any day now, according to her attorney.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they loved me.
Of Cassie Ventura, and now no longer her friend. What can you tell us about that testimony and how it's starting out?
The courtroom was supposed to be just another day of testimony, but it wasn't. Because at exactly 9:42 a.m., everything changed. Not because of what someone said under oath, not because of a surprise witness, but because of a single social media post. When Justin Bieber publicly backed Cassie, the air in the courtroom shifted. It wasn't just legal anymore, it became personal, emotional, explosive. You could feel it, the way people leaned in, the silence, the weight of it. It hit harder than anything the prosecution had said in 2 days of trial. This was the exact moment Diddy's world started to crack. Because what Bieber posted wasn't vague. It wasn't some sending prayers message. It was specific, emotional, detailed. And it made Diddy lose control in front of everyone. He wasn't ready for betrayal, especially not from someone he once called family.
Freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting.
What happened next would spiral into one of the most dramatic court outbursts in recent memory. And from that moment on, nothing in the trial would ever be the same again. This is the story of how Justin Bieber's statement didn't just break the internet, it broke the courtroom. And for the first time, the public saw a version of Diddy that was impossible to unsee. Diddy walked into the courtroom that morning like he owned the place. Designer suit perfectly pressed, gold cufflinks, that trademark confidence dripping from every step. His legal team, dressed like corporate assassins, flanked him on both sides. To the casual observer, nothing looked out of place. But if you really looked closely, something was off. It was in his eyes, the way they scanned the room too often, like he was searching for something or someone, the way he touched his phone over and over. That wasn't confidence. That was distraction. Anxiety wrapped in a $1,000 tie. Security wasn't subtle that day either. They'd quietly added extra officers to the courtroom, one stationed directly behind Diddy's chair, another near the aisle. Their eyes never left him. It wasn't standard protocol for a celebrity trial. It looked like someone somewhere knew something was about to happen. And then Cassie walked in. She wasn't flashy, no glam squad entrance, just a simple black dress with a white collar and friends flanking her like shields. They didn't speak. They didn't smile. They just walked her to her seat like it was sacred ground. It was the perfect contrast. Diddy surrounded by power.
In a federal case, there are no cameras in the courtroom. There is no audio in the courtroom. But we are going to do our best to report to you in real time.
Cassie surrounded by people, real people. But the cracks in Diddy's armor kept getting wider. He couldn't stop looking at his phone, thumb scrolling furiously, face darkening with each swipe. His lawyer eventually reached across and took it from him, gently but firmly. That's when people first noticed it. Diddy's hand shaking. The prosecution team, meanwhile, looked like they were sitting on a landmine. Constant whispering, tablets being passed between desks. One prosecutor showed something to another, and both nodded like they'd just discovered a smoking gun. Even the judge seemed different. On day one, she was all business, professional, firm, calm. But that morning, she walked in with eyes locked on Diddy's table. Her whisper to the clerk sent him scrambling for his phone. Whatever was coming wasn't routine. Everyone felt it. The vibe had changed. Jurors were glancing around, confused by the sudden tension. One actually asked for water, her hands visibly shaking as she reached for the cup. Diddy sat there, bouncing, his leg clenching his jaw, veins starting to bulge from his forehead. His lawyer kept sliding legal documents in front of him, trying to bring him back into focus. But Diddy just pushed them aside. He wasn't reading, he was bracing. It was like watching a dam crack. You knew it couldn't hold much longer. You just didn't know when or how hard it was going to break. Then it hit. Like a sonic boom, online first, then in the courtroom. Justin Bieber had posted, not a PR-safe statement, not a cryptic emoji or an industry-friendly thoughts and prayers. This was a detonation. Bieber didn't just say he supported Cassie. He painted the picture himself, named dates, recalled moments. He wrote that he had personally witnessed Diddy's behavior, how he'd seen Diddy grab Cassie's arm too hard at a 2015 after-party, how Diddy would interrupt her in interviews, how the power dynamic felt off even back then. He just hadn't known how to name it at the time. The caption ended with words that hit like a confession. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. What I saw wasn't okay. Within minutes, it was everywhere. 270 million followers, thousands of retweets, news headlines updated mid-trial. In the hallway outside the courtroom, reporters stared at their phones like they'd just seen the ending of a thriller. Legal aides printed screenshots, assistants whispered, bailiffs exchanged glances. Inside, the pressure started to boil. You could feel the weight pressing against the walls of the courtroom, like everyone was holding their breath. And Diddy? He'd already seen it. Before court even started, his phone had buzzed. He'd looked, and in that moment, everyone near him saw the shift. His face went blank, then tight, then something else. Betrayal, confusion, pure disbelief. It was like watching someone realize the floor under them wasn't real. And then came the rage. He slammed the phone face down on the table. His leg started bouncing like a piston. His lawyer leaned in, whispering, trying to contain it. But Diddy wasn't blinking. He was locked in. His hand hovered over the table, clenched in a fist so tight. His knuckles turned white. One bailiff moved half a step forward. Cassie didn't flinch. She just sat there, composed, unbothered, because she already knew what this moment meant. Everyone in that room did. This wasn't just drama. This was narrative whiplash. The mentor turning against the mogul. The mentee exposing the one who gave him a platform. A moment that would reverberate far beyond courtroom walls. And the worst part for Diddy was that this wasn't hearsay. It wasn't speculation. It was someone who had been there, and it was only the beginning. The court had barely settled when it happened. The judge walked in, expression unusually tight. The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. But the atmosphere, still electric, still crackling. Diddy wasn't okay. From the moment court resumed, you could see it. He wasn't listening, wasn't responding to his lawyers. His eyes weren't on the judge, the jury, or even the evidence screen. They were somewhere else, still stuck on that post, still trying to make sense of the betrayal. His leg bounced non-stop, his breathing loud, uneven. His lawyer kept placing papers in front of him. He pushed them away every time. Then his hand started shaking, visibly, uncontrollably. A woman in the third row noticed and whispered to her neighbor. A man 2 rows up turned to watch more closely. Even one of the jurors glanced sideways, just briefly, but it was enough. The meltdown had already started. And then Diddy stood up, not a polite rise to stretch, not a recess walk to the hallway. He stood like something had snapped, abrupt, sudden, like a spring uncoiling. The bailiff behind him instantly stepped forward. Tension peaked. You could feel the entire room tighten like a drum, and then Diddy spoke, loud, clear, and dangerous. After everything I did for that kid, loyalty means nothing anymore. The words weren't yelled, not yet, but they carried. Everyone close enough heard. One court reporter looked up from her keyboard, eyebrows raised. Another hit record on her phone under the desk. The quote traveled instantly, like a bullet ricocheting through the courtroom. Then he muttered something else, something about consequences. His lawyer moved fast, grabbing his arm, yanking him back into his seat. The room froze. Security stiffened. The judge was stone-faced. But Diddy wasn't done. Minutes passed. Quiet ones. Tense ones. Then the sound of shattering glass cut through it like a scream. Diddy's hand had slammed the table. A water glass tipped, then exploded on the floor. People flinched. One juror gasped. Another blinked rapidly, frozen in her seat. And then came the real explosion. "I'll make sure he never works in this." "Town again! Neither of them will." That's when everything fell apart. His lawyer tried wrapping an arm around him. Diddy shrugged him off violently. The judge immediately banged her gavel, calling a 15-minute recess. But Diddy didn't move. He just sat there, face bright red, shoulders heaving, jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might break. Courtroom sketch artists scribbled furiously. They captured the veins bulging in his neck, the clenched fists, the fury in his eyes. Reporters literally ran out of the room to file their updates. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team looked like they'd seen a ghost. Huddled, whispering, panicking. One lawyer made a phone call. Another was sweating through his suit. The head counsel rubbed his eyes like he couldn't believe what just happened. And all Cassie did, she sat still, not a twitch, not a blink. The contrast was stunning. One man losing control, one woman regaining hers. When court resumed after that chaotic recess, the energy in the room had shifted again, except this time it wasn't volatile. It was focused. Cassie stood up and walked to the witness stand with her shoulders squared, her back straight. No bodyguards, no lawyers holding her arm. Just her in control of her own story. She didn't look down like she had on day one. She didn't glance nervously toward Diddy. In fact, she didn't acknowledge him at all. She looked directly at the jury, and when she spoke, her voice didn't tremble. She began with facts, names, dates, screenshots. The prosecution had prepared her well, but her confidence came from more than preparation. It came from truth. They showed messages. One from 2016 where Diddy sent 17 texts in a row demanding to know her location. "I need to know where you are every..." That's the deal if you want to keep your career. Another showed him listing male artists she wasn't allowed to speak to. Justin Bieber was on that list, and then Cassie dropped the bomb. When I asked why Justin was off limits, he grabbed my arm and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." You could hear someone in the gallery exhale sharply. A juror flinched. A reporter looked up, eyes wide. Because now, Bieber's post wasn't just support, it was validation. His claims were matching hers in real time, on the record, under oath. Cassie spoke of being monitored, of needing permission to speak, of being silenced in public and controlled in private. She listed event after event. The dates matched Diddy's calendar. The locations were verified. The patterns were impossible to ignore. Every time she added a new detail, Diddy's lawyer scribbled furiously. He looked more like a student taking a test he hadn't studied for than the high-powered attorney he was supposed to be. And Diddy? He just kept fidgeting, adjusting his tie, running his hands through his hair, eyes darting. He looked like a man being pulled apart in real time, but Cassie, unshakable. She spoke like someone who finally felt safe enough to tell the truth. Someone who knew the world was watching and didn't care. Not anymore. Because for the first time in years, she had the floor, and she wasn't giving it up. Just when everyone thought it couldn't get more intense, the prosecution dropped the final match into the gasoline. "Your Honor," the lead prosecutor said, standing in the center of the courtroom with a folder. In hand, "We would like to present digital evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs's claims." The courtroom screens flickered to life, and then silence. Because what appeared wasn't just another witness statement, it was a message thread between Justin Bieber and Cassie. Dated 2017, the prosecution zoomed in, words in bold. No room for doubt. "Cassie, I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything. Bieber, this isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help. Cassie, he said if I talk to anyone, He'll make sure I never work again. Gasps. Audible gasps. People in the room leaned forward. One juror mouthed, "Wow." The ripple of energy was instant, undeniable, because this wasn't just testimony. This was proof. Proof that Cassie had confided in someone years ago, long before any lawsuit, long before the court dates, long before the headlines. Proof that Justin Bieber had known and had warned her. And Diddy? He lost it. He shot up from his chair so violently the legs screeched against the floor. His face turned red, eyes bulging with rage. His lawyer whispered, "Sean, don't." But it was too late. Diddy shoved the lawyer's hand away, hard. The man stumbled backward. "This is all lies," Diddy shouted. "You know damn well that's not what happened." His voice bounced off the walls. Every eye in the courtroom locked on him. The judge banged her gavel 3 times. "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or I will have you removed." But he kept going. "Those messages are fake. He never said that. This is a setup." His arms flailed, his voice cracked. He wasn't the mogul anymore. He wasn't in control. He was exposed. 2 security guards moved fast. One stepped between Diddy and the prosecution table. Another moved behind him. "Sir, you need to calm down now," one officer said, hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a second, it looked like Diddy might actually push him too. Instead, he just stopped, collapsed back into his chair, breathing hard, hands trembling, and in that moment, everyone in that courtroom, jury included, saw it. The man who once controlled everything had finally lost control. The jury was escorted out immediately, not a suggestion, an order from the bench. "Remove the jury," the judge said, gavel still in hand, voice sharper than it had been all trial. "Now!" 12 men and women rose silently and filed out. Their faces a mix of confusion, shock, and something else. Clarity. Because they hadn't just seen Diddy lose his temper, they'd seen him unravel. 2 guards remained on either side of Diddy as the courtroom cleared. His lawyer leaned in, speaking quickly, urgently, but Diddy wasn't listening. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, sweat beating at his temples, his image of control crushed under the weight of what had just happened. Judge Marlowe didn't wait long. She stood, straightened her robe, and delivered a blow no publicist could. "Fix. Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here." Her words were ice, sharp, final. "If you have another outburst, I will hold you in contempt. You will finish this trial from a holding cell. Am I clear?" Diddy didn't answer, so she kept going. She ordered a full psychiatric evaluation before court resumed the next day. She implemented new security protocols. 2 guards within arm's reach of Diddy at all times. No legal team. Could speak with him without an officer present. His phone? Confiscated. Indefinitely. At the defense table, Diddy's legal team looked wrecked. One attorney was on the phone, pacing. Another scribbled notes, mouth tight. The lead lawyer sat, in silence, just shaking his head like a coach, watching his star player throw the championship game. And the courtroom? You could feel the shift. The story had changed. Jurors returned to their seats visibly different. One woman physically moved her chair farther from the defense table. Another juror, who had smiled at Diddy on day 1. He didn't even glance his. Cassie, meanwhile, didn't flinch. She sat calm, collected, a pillar in the middle of a storm. And the prosecution? They didn't celebrate, didn't smirk. But the lead attorney's assistant had to hide a smile behind her folder. Security was no longer subtle. One officer now stood directly behind Diddy, hands clasped, alert. Another guarded the courtroom door, hand resting near his belt. No one was pretending anymore. The facade was gone, and the jury wasn't just seeing the evidence, they were seeing who held it together and who didn't. As the day wrapped up, the contrast couldn't have been more dramatic. That morning, Diddy had walked in like he was untouchable. Designer suit, confident smirk, a man who believed the courtroom revolved around him. By afternoon, he shuffled out, shoulders slumped, tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who looked like they'd aged a decade in a single day. He didn't speak, he didn't lift his head. He just walked out, slower, smaller, defeated. And Cassie? She didn't move like a victim. She moved like a survivor. She never raised her voice, never showed fear. While Diddy unraveled in front of the world, she remained still, focused, powerful. This case was never just about one moment or one testimony. It was about patterns, about power, about silence, and what happens when someone breaks it. And Justin Bieber, he shattered the silence. He didn't just post support. He started a reckoning, because now that one celebrity has spoken up, the question isn't if others will follow. It's who's next. And in a courtroom full of whispers, betrayal, and buried truths, that one post might have been the first domino to fall. Like this story? Subscribe for more, because this trial is far from over.